Hello, welcome to our discussion about Standard 3. I'm Amy Lee with the Council on Economic Education, and we get to visit with Carrie Hickson from Mustang High School with financial literacy, and she's going to walk us through the state curriculum for Standard 3. But first, before we do that, I wanted to ask Carrie. She's been teaching personal finance for over 10 years. I know it's beyond that, and economics before that, and other subjects as well. But Carrie, what is your favorite part about teaching personal financial literacy?
I think for me, the relatability of the subject matter to the students, that this is something that they will be using not only now, but all throughout their lives. And that's one of the things that I tell them at the very beginning why I love teaching this subject is because everything that you learn in this in personal finance, you're going to use. You're going to use it either now or within a few years. And so just how relatable this is to the students and how much they will be using this information. I think that's my favorite part of teaching it.
That's great. And yes, that's absolutely right. It's so needed and relevant, as we know, to make sure students understand these concepts. So, well, we'll go ahead and dive in to Standard 3, banking and financial services. And so I'll hand it off to you, Carrie, to walk us through what that looks like in the State Department curriculum.
All right, thanks. So standard 3 is a pretty short standard, but it has a lot of vocabulary for the students. The lesson examines the various types of financial institutions and the services that are available to these students, helping them to make choices that align with their financial goals. And standard 1, we talked about goal setting. And so this is just kind of carrying that on with helping them. How do I meet the financial goals that I have? I personally use the scenarios that are at the beginning of the slideshow or at the beginning of the student module to help introduce this topic and to get students thinking and hopefully discussing about what's positive and negative in each situation. So if you've kind of already looked over those scenarios, the first one talks about Connie, and I have students look and say, what are some of the positive things that are going on with Connie? And like, she is keeping up with what's happening with her account. She's not getting check writing fees. But then I also ask them to find if there's anything negative, and most of them have a hard time until I ask them, is there only one way she's keeping track of her account? Because it says she's using her online account to track everything. And then I ask if there could be issues with this. And a lot of the students just kind of stare at me like they have no idea that there could be. And so occasionally I'll have a student go, yeah, if you're not keeping track of it yourself and you're just relying on the bank, that could be an issue. And so then that starts the discussion of why can that be an issue? So that's with Connie. Then the next person that's in there is Mino, and we talk about the positives, or that he's keeping track of his own account. He's just kind of old school, like I was when I was their age, or that even a lot, their grandparents might even be now. They're just writing checks and doing everything a little old school. When I ask about if there's anything negative, I actually had a student one time bring up the fact that if he's only verifying his account once a month, because that's old school to get that paper account through the mail once a month, what happens if he gets hacked? And that he will have a hard time catching it a little sooner. So there could be some negatives even with the old school way that could be brought up. The last person in the scenarios is Martin. And as you read through that, it's kind of hard to find a positive for Martin, except for the fact that he actually does use cash. And if you use cash, it's hard to overspend. So that would be a positive for Martin. The negatives we talk about are just about everything else that Martin does. And we kind of go into the whys of it. That can take a little bit of time for us to work through that. But then we go and we talk through the discussion questions that are in the presentation with the students. And I'm trying to get them to think and then to answer. This can be hard, but one of the things that I have discovered through some professional development that I have done is Nearpod. If you haven't ever used Nearpod, it might be good to check it out. There are free versions of it, and it's basically an interactive PowerPoint. So you could take the state's presentations and put them into a Nearpod. And then this can allow you to insert student activities within it, like open-ended questions or post-it note activities. And a lot of times students that won't share out loud verbally will have really good answers that they're willing to write down and type in on a computer if you have this access available to you. And then you can go in and share those student answers with all the other students. So just a thought, if you have technology available, that you might want to look into that. I personally have kind of rearranged the presentation because I like to discuss the financial institutions and the definitions with the students, and then go into the financial services and their definitions, and go into a little more detail. And students then can ask questions about things that they don't really understand with each of these. And so I like to personally break it up into those two scenarios with the financial institutions and then the services. I've also integrated some of Next Gen Personal Finance, which is an online curriculum again. They have questions of the day, and you can go in and you can find them over different topics. And they have some really good questions of the day over banking that you can either put in with your presentation, or you could do them as bell ringers at the very beginning. And so this could be another way to bring in some more detailed information and get students thinking a little more. Students, I then have them complete the activities that are part of the student lessons, 3.1A and 3.1B, to make sure that they understand the concepts and the vocabulary. You could have them complete the lesson review, either for a grade or as an exit ticket, if you want to do it that way, just to make sure that they understand the concepts. The teacher guide has a card sorting game as an enrichment activity to help learn the vocabulary. It's a really good activity. I personally have always played bingo with the students with this, where they write down the vocab words on a pre-printed bingo sheet, and then I read the definitions and they have to match it with the correct term. Personally, I play it several times with them, letting them use their notes, and then they have to play it by memory. I give candy. It's amazing how much kids will do for a piece of candy. So it's just something out there. As an extra, you might have students do some research about national banks, local banks, online banks, and credit unions. Maybe have them go online and find one of each of these resources and find out what kind of accounts are offered and which type of financial institution they would prefer to have an account at. So that would be some ways that you could go a little deeper. Another research option could be having students do further research on overdraft protection. This is a kind of a topic that a lot of students don't know a lot about or understand. Consumer Reports has a really good short video explaining these called bank overdraft fees that you could go onto YouTube and find and show for your students. That just help them grasp the concept of what overdraft protection is and how those fees work. Some other short videos that could be found on YouTube on this topic are credit unions better than banks? That is put out there by 2 cents. What's the difference between checking and savings? This is done by Mashables, and Cal Penn explains it. And most of these students, once you put that up, will have recognize Cal Penn as an actor that's on some of their favorite shows, and they'll go, hey, wasn't he on? And so it engages them a little bit more. Another group that does some of these videos is It's a Money Thing. And these are sponsored by a lot of different credit unions out there. And they have some really good videos also on the difference between credit unions and banks. So just some other resources that are out there to help maybe make your presentation or your lesson a little more engaging for the students. So I hope this helps explain different ways to teach your students about the different financial institutions that are out there, and what are some of the different things that they offer. So the services that are offered. So back to
Great.
you, Amy.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carrie. You provided a lot of really great extra tools of engagement, videos, and little activities. That's fantastic. Those are really great ways to engage students in that extra level to get discussion started. And so I have one more question for you, Carrie. What are some, do you have anything extra or just things that teachers, especially new teachers, um, might anticipate in discussion or hangups that students sometimes have when going over standard three?
Um, for students, a lot of them only are aware of what is local, or what their parents are doing. And so, yes, they know that there's the bank down the road or there's something called a credit union, but they don't understand the differences between those. And they don't understand the amount of financial institutions and the number of financial services that they offer. And so this is a new topic, a lot of new information for students. And like I said, it's really heavy on vocabulary. So they have to understand that vocabulary to be able to do well in the standard. So I hope that helps.
Absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense, especially since things have just changed a lot. Even within the past 10 years, we now have
Yeah,
banks that are completely online and have no brick and mortar. That's completely different. So those are important things to remember when teaching about this. So thank you so
exactly.
much, Gary.
And it's another thing that we have to keep up to date on too as teachers, because there's constantly new technology coming along that it's important for us to try and stay update and engaged on what is going on.
That's exactly right, and that's why we're here to help serve at the Council on Economic Education, especially with the State Department curriculum, with always trying to keep it as up to date as possible. And we're in a three. Just this is a good plug for the plan for Department curriculum is to there's a 3-year cycle of continuing to update it so that something won't ever be outdated. And if there is something legislative that changes or a major law that happens, that then we're going to address that immediately. So the State Department curriculum is always a good base to go to make sure it's always covered.
Yes, it
And then
is.
pulling in those other resources that Carrie mentioned, and we'll make a list of those. And you provided a lot of really great ones so that teachers, when they're watching this, we can have a list ready to go for them. So, okay, well, thank you for discussing Standard 3, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Amy.
Bye bye.